Most people believe that happiness only exists in the absence of pain. But what if I told you that it is possible to experience a love so deep, a faith so unshakable, that not even the most intense suffering can erase them? The story of St. Lidwina is living proof of this. Imagine losing all mobility at the age of 15 and, instead of giving into despair, transforming your pain into a path of light for thousands of people. Does it seem impossible? Well, that is exactly what happened. While many have escaped such a fate, she chose to trust in God and found wisdom that few achieve. And now, I ask you, could the suffering you face today be hiding a greater reason? From an early age, Lidwina's life was a living testimony of faith and hope. Raised in the small town of Schiedam in the Netherlands, she grew up in a humble home, where trust in God was the foundation of the family. In a time of hardship, her mother and father taught her that true wealth was not found in material goods, but in divine wisdom and love for others. Her simple routine, filled with prayers and Christian teachings, shaped her character and prepared her for a destiny that no one could have foreseen. Like many children at the time, she ran through the fields and laughed with her friends, never imagining that her journey would be marked by a much greater calling. At the age of 15, her life took an unexpected turn. Destiny often presents us with challenges that seem insurmountable, but with faith, we can see purpose where there is only pain. In the prime of her youth, while playing on the ice with other children, she suffered a fall that would change everything. What seemed like a simple accident turned out to be an ordeal, as her pain intensified to the point where she was unable to get out of bed. Her family sought help, but resources were scarce. While many might have rebelled, Lidwina began to understand that her pain was not a punishment, but a divine invitation to something greater. Her physical fragility did not prevent her soul from growing stronger. Although at first she had questions, over time, her trust in God grew within her like a flame that nothing could extinguish. In the midst of her suffering, she discovered that her mission was not to seek earthly healing, but rather to transform her experience into a testimony of love and dedication. Like a beacon in the midst of a storm, her story began to illuminate the lives of those around her. But her journey was just beginning, and what seemed like an unbearable burden would soon become an unexpected gift. Life has mysterious ways of guiding us to where we need to be, even when we don't understand why. Lidwina's accident seemed, at first glance, like a senseless tragedy. The pain that took over her body was not only physical, but also emotional. Imagine a young woman full of dreams, energy, and joy, suddenly confined to a bed, unable to walk, run, or live as before. Hope seemed distant, but in the darkest moments, faith becomes our only light. What many saw as an end, God was transforming into a new beginning. The doctors at the time could do little. Treatments were limited, and Lidwina's pain increased with each passing day. The reality was harsh, and anyone in her place might have given in to despair. However, it was precisely at that moment that something inside her began to change. Instead of focusing on what she had lost, she began to seek purpose in her suffering. This is a valuable lesson. How often do we see our difficulties as insurmountable barriers, when in fact they can be pathways to something greater? It was during this search that Lidwina began to realize that her story did not end there. Over time, her transformation became evident. The young woman who had previously seen herself as a victim of circumstances began to see her pain as a way to get closer to God. Amidst her tears, she found solace in prayer, and each day bettered became an opportunity to strengthen her soul. Perhaps you have already gone through moments like this, where everything seemed meaningless. But remember, when we trust, God gives us the strength to see beyond the pain. And in Lidwina's case, this journey was just beginning. Her story would have surprising twists and turns. Pain can be a prison or a bridge to something greater. In Lidwina's case, each day became a battle against suffering that seemed to have no end. Her body weakened, her wounds grew larger, and human hope seemed to fade. Many would have given up, but there was something inside her that wouldn't allow it. Faith. Not a superficial faith, but that deep trust that God was acting, even when everything said otherwise. And this is true for all of us. Often, the greatest miracles happen when everything seems lost. She sought treatments, doctors, and healers of the time, but nothing worked. Despair could have consumed her, but it was at that moment that a presence appeared to guide her. Father Joao Pote. He didn't have a miraculous cure, but he brought something even more powerful. Words that changed her perspective. He helped her see that her pain was not a punishment, but an opportunity to get closer to God. This doesn't mean passively accepting suffering, but understanding it as a path to transformation. Think about it. How many times have you rebelled against something that was actually shaping your life? From that encounter, Leduina began to see meaning in what she was experiencing. Her prayers intensified, her soul found strength, and even without getting out of bed, she began to walk spiritually. This teaches us something profound. It is not the absence of pain that strengthens us, but the way we deal with it. Maybe you are facing challenges right now without seeing a way out. But remember, God never wastes a tear. He transforms pain into purpose if we have the wisdom to trust. And for Leduina, this trust would soon open doors to experiences that defied all human logic. As time went by, something inexplicable began to happen in Leduina's life. Her suffering, which had previously been merely physical, began to transform into something that few understood. She began to have visions, profound spiritual experiences, and an understanding that went beyond ordinary reality. Many might have doubted this, but those who listened to her knew there was something divine happening there. She spoke about heaven, about revelations that God had given her, and even about the spiritual state of Europe. Her story teaches us that when we face challenges with faith, God can reveal things to us that we would never have imagined. Her gifts were not just for herself, but for those who needed guidance. People came from far and wide to hear her words, seeking hope, advice, and even healing. This shows how God can work through those who, even physically limited, are spiritual giants. Have you ever stopped to think that perhaps your challenges are not just about you? Sometimes, the wisdom we gain in the midst of struggles can be exactly what someone else needs to hear. And so it was with Leduina. Her bed of pain became an altar of teaching. But with great gifts, great challenges also come. Many did not believe in her, criticize her, and even try to discredit her. And this is something that happens to this day. When God does something extraordinary in someone's life, there will always be those who doubt. But true faith does not need human approval. Leduina knew this and remained steadfast. And her connection with God only grew until she made a radical decision to give all her suffering as an act of love for the souls that needed salvation. Leduina understood that her suffering was not a punishment, but a mission. She decided to offer every pain, every moment of anguish, as an act of love to God and the souls in need. Instead of rebelling, she transformed her illness into a voluntary sacrifice, believing that her pain could bring spiritual relief to others. This is a powerful concept. How many times do we complain about difficulties without realizing that God can use them for a greater purpose? Imagine if, instead of running away from challenges, we learned to use them to grow and help others. Her sickbed became an altar of intercession. Even though she could not walk, her influence reached far and wide. People came from different places, asking for her prayers, seeking her guidance, and finding in her a source of hope and wisdom. This reminds us that no matter our physical, financial, or emotional condition, we can always be used by God to transform lives. Have you ever thought that your own story could be a source of inspiration for someone who is going through what you have already overcome? But this path was not easy. Her dedication required unwavering faith and complete trust in God. The world seeks to avoid suffering at all costs, but Leduina embraced it with an eternal purpose. This teaches us that true faith is not based solely on good times, but on the ability to remain steadfast, even in trials. Her testimony is echoed through the centuries and continues to impact lives. But how could something so great come from someone who, humanly speaking, seems so limited? The answer lay in the legacy she left behind. Leduina's story did not end with her death. On the contrary, her legacy has spread like a river that never runs dry. Her testimony of unwavering faith and total surrender to God has spanned centuries, inspiring believers to trust in the power of prayer and divine purpose, even in the midst of suffering. Her life shows us that true strength lies not in the absence of pain, but in the ability to find meaning in it. To this day, her teachings resonate, inviting us to look at our challenges with a renewed and hopeful perspective. Pilgrims from all over Europe sought her intercession, and many witnessed miracles and spiritual transformations after coming into contact with her story. Her name became synonymous with faith and trust in God, proving that the influence of a life dedicated to the Creator can span generations. This makes us wonder, what are we leaving for those who come after us? Will our journey inspire others to draw closer to God? Small gestures of faith can become seeds of transformation for many lives. Saint Leduina teaches us that when we surrender our lives to God, He uses them in ways we cannot even imagine. Her example challenges us to see beyond the difficulties and find purpose in every detail of the journey. What if your life could also become a living testimony of divine grace? What if your faith could be the light for someone who is walking in darkness today? These are questions worth reflecting on, because in the end, the true impact we leave on the world is not in what we accumulate, but in how we love, serve, and share the wisdom we have been given. Now that you know the story of St. Ludwina, tell me, how have you been dealing with life's difficulties? Have you seen suffering as just a burden, or have you stopped to think that God may be shaping you for something greater? Her faith turned into purpose, and perhaps what you're facing today is the beginning of a new journey of hope and trust. What would happen if, instead of questioning, you place your struggle in God's hands? Think about it. And if this video brought you something of value, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and leave in the comments what touched you most about this story.